Hi, good evening, everybody. I've never heard Monty say anything quite so nice about me, so I'm slightly bemused by that. He does say, however, he's going to come on after I speak and say something else. So I'm a bit nervous about that. I'm going to talk to you about two things tonight. I've got a story and I've got a message. So I'm going to start with the story. And the story is about a group of 4 women who decided it would be a good idea, clearly we were maybe a little bit drunk at the time, to row across the Atlantic. And we made that decision really in a vacuum of support, a vacuum of knowledge, a vacuum of skill, frankly, if I'm honest, a vacuum of fitness, and probably a bit of a vacuum of rowing ability in terms of ocean rowing. So, you know, we started at a good place. We started in August 2004, deciding that we were going to do this grand feat. But the one thing that we didn't have a vacuum of was a vision. We had a vision that we could do it. It was just something in our heads, and we proceeded to then take that vision and make it into something that happened. And that was quite an amazing journey. And so I'll tell you a little bit of the story of the Atlantic Row, but my message tonight is very much, it's about what goes on in here. And that's the bit that takes us from the dream to the reality. And that's really what I want to just briefly talk about tonight. So this is a picture of Diana Rowland, who has got a very good tennis swing, and in fact cut her hand when she launched our boat because she was so concerned that she wouldn't smash the bottle, that she took a right good swing in it. And that was the day our boat was launched. We went to La Gomera, which is one of the Canary Islands, to start our race. Now, 3 days before our race, we were faced with the reality of a tropical storm. And I'd never seen a tropical storm before. And I was, people will be surprised to hear, sitting in a bar, only drinking orange juice, obviously, at that point, watching, you know those great big wheelie bins, the big green ones that they put rubbish in? Watching those get lifted by the wind and taken down the street. And this was at the point when we were still in that lovely sort of, we're going to row across the Atlantic, won't that be jolly japes place? Which was very, very quickly dawning into a real reality of what we'd taken on. And it was becoming a little bit scary, I'll tell you. And because I'm an eternal optimist, I was thinking things like, well, hey, once we're at sea, there won't be any wheelie bins, will there? So how dangerous can it be? You can imagine that my crew mates were perhaps not quite as optimistic as I was, and were probably thinking to themselves, this woman is an idiot, what are we doing here with her? However, they were brave enough to get into the boat, and off we went. The day dawned beautiful, the day that we actually took off. And we thought to ourselves, well, according to the weather forecasters, that's the end of the hurricane season. So it'll be like this for the rest of the time we're out there. Now, some of you know this story and know that we did have a great time when we were out there a lot of the time. This is a picture of 2 of my crewmates, Lois and Sarah, singing, having a lovely time. We had dolphins come up to the boat, which was very exciting. We played games. We did have one game that we did have to abandon, though. We used to play a game that was about food, and it was about probably halfway through the journey that we banned this particular game, because when you're rowing for a very long time, it can get a little bit boring, as you can imagine. You get up in the morning and you say to your colleagues, "What should we do today?" And the answer is always the same. So you play some games to kind of keep your head going. And we had this game about food. So we had a game, the A to Z of my favourite meal. And that was brilliant, you know. We had A, B, C, D. By the time we got to E and F, we were salivating and pulling out of our rations those little foil containers that contained our rations for the day, which actually, rather unfortunately, had been impregnated by resin in our compartments. So everything tasted the same. So we had to ban that game because we all got very depressed. So my first message to you about your mind is, be careful what you think about. We unfortunately also had some rough days. In fact, we had a lot of rough days. I think January, really, basically. And what happened was we started to hit a lot of storms and we started to get very wet. Now, it doesn't sound too bad, does it? I mean, you'd expect to get wet on a rowing boat. But when you are constantly wet for about 40 days and it's salt water, then there's all sorts of things that start happening to your skin which is not very pleasant. Now, I won't share them with you tonight because I'm sure you want to eat at some stage. But suffice to say, there were parts of our bodies that weren't that pretty by the time we got sort of partway through January. And we had to cope with 4 of us battling this and battling our headspace. And the headspace was the bit that got you up, that got you onto your rowing seat, and it was the thing that kept you going. So it was what was going on in your mind that would keep you rowing hard, or faltering. And when you're doing that for 67 days, 7 hours and 20 minutes, which I have to tell you is the only statistic I have ever held in my head, for a reason, when you're doing it for that long, you have to be very conscious of how you are thinking. And you can't just let your mind go. You have to concentrate. And you have to think about, am I thinking the right thoughts? So it's like when we're training our bodies. We train our minds in exactly the same way. We practice it. So we don't practice getting up and saying, do you know what, I don't really fancy rowing today. Do you know what? Rowing's really boring. I hate rowing. Rowing's crap. I don't know why I'm here. What am I doing this for? This is a disaster. It's wet, it's cold, I've got things on my ass I never knew I'd have. Okay, you don't do that, because if you do that, you would stop. Or you would try and get somebody to rescue you. Okay, and I have to tell you, when you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and your satellite phone has gone out, there aren't a lot of people to ring up to say, could you pick me up, please? So you have to get on. We quite often couldn't row because what happened to us was that some of the weather was so bad that we had to go on a para anchor just to hold us in position. And that was quite depressing. And again, we had to kind of keep our minds going. And again, we played some games to keep us going. We sung songs. We had Christmas carols. We did all sorts of stuff. Stuff that you would never really do on dry land, I suspect. But we found out things about each other we probably wish we'd never known. And I'm hoping most of them have forgotten it by now. We did have a lot of very big water. And our boat was about 9 metres long. And people quite often ask me, well, how big were the waves, Kath? Now, we didn't have anything scientific to measure them. But I do remember one particular day when we were having quite a good time, when the waves happened to be going with us. And we actually got this 2-ton boat surfing. And it was the most amazing feeling. It was so fantastic. But what we realised was that, you know, if the boat's 9 metres long and if one end of the boat is in the trough of the wave, what we could see is there was about 2 more boat lengths ahead of us. It kind of gives you an idea of how big it probably was. One of the things that we did that I think was really crucial for us was keeping ourselves on target. Now, you're all coaches, some of you are athletes as well, and you know, this is basic stuff, isn't it? You have to know where you're going in order to get there. But one of the things that we also discovered was we had to celebrate on the way, because the journey that we were on was very long, and frankly it was a bit longer than we were expecting it to be perfectly honest with you. And so what we did was we started to celebrate every time we went across a line of longitude. And what you can see on the board up there, the little white board next to my head, is degrees of longitude, and then you may be able to make out little letters next to those. Well, the little letters, there's a CC, that stands for chocolate chip. And there's a V for Viennetta, not the ice cream, thankfully. And what we would do is every time we got past these particular degrees of longitude, we would celebrate with a packet of biscuits. You would be amazed what you can do for 3 days for 2 chocolate chip biscuits when you're in the middle of the Atlantic. It is phenomenal. And the psychologists amongst you will be interested to know that there was kind of a fascinating process that went on. So we get the chocolate chip biscuits. Okay. Now we're going to do a little survey here. So if you were in the middle of the ocean and you hadn't had anything crunchy for some time and you knew you were going to get a chocolate chip biscuit, how many of you would eat those 2 chocolate chip biscuits when you got them? Okay. All right. Sorry, it's not a trick. Okay. So how many of you would save the chocolate chip biscuits till maybe the end of your shift so that you could really enjoy them with a cup of tea? Okay. And how many of you would be one of those really irritating people that would hold on to them till the next day and then bring them out in front of your crewmates and go, I still want a chocolate chip biscuit, aren't I cool? No hands? I bet there's some of you here. There's always someone. The point is we all take these things differently. The reward is for us, how we use it is not important. What's important is we celebrate successes on the way. Often people think that we can only celebrate if we win, or we can only celebrate when we actually get there. But one of the things that was very, very real to me through this whole journey was this celebrating success on the way. And that included even before we left. I know that some of you here were around when we were doing this, and some of you will have put your hands in your pockets and given us money to help us get there. And part of our success was actually being able to raise that fund and get some community, some real community drive behind us, and that was a fantastic feeling for us. And when we were out in the ocean, we used that feeling. We knew that people were supporting us, and we talked about it, and it was fab. So this is us arriving in Antigua, and you'll see the splashes are thankfully now not salt water, but they're champagne. And I think I have told the story a couple of times. One of the awful things about getting into Antigua, you'd think it would all be good, wouldn't you? One of the really awful things about getting into Antigua was somebody handed me something that I had been dreaming about for 67 days, 7 hours and 20 minutes, and it was wrong. Somebody gave me a warm beer. It was not a good moment. It was really not a good moment. I had spent time visualising, the cold, like on all the adverts. So I fairly swiftly sent them off for a cold one. We got a world record for this. It's not the fastest time by any stretch, but it was then because we were the first. So my recommendation to you is if you're ever going to try anything, do it first, and then nobody can ever take away your world record. Okay, that's the story in brief. But what I'd like to also talk to you about is how we got there. And I use this model a lot with, I do a lot of coaching in the business world, so I coach executive teams, executive leaders, and this is how I've distilled down how we got where we got. So I call it the ABC to victory. So the A is for acumen, and acumen is about what's in our heads. What is it that drives us, that keeps us going, that keeps us on target? And there's some real simple but key things, and you'll be talking about this even more over the weekend. For me, one of the biggest is believing in yourself. And it's not in an arrogant, I can do anything way. I could have said, well, I'm going to be an Olympic rower. I was 42 years old, I'm only this tall. It's probably not going to happen. Okay? That just would have been arrogance. But believing in your abilities is about knowing yourself and having acumen. So your ability to think, your ability to learn and grow, your ability to set and achieve goals, and not forgetting, particularly for you as coaches, your ability to inspire other people. Because that's what you do. And it's such a gift. It is such a gift. Like that phone call. Hello. Okay. So, believing in ourselves is one of the core things that we need to hold on to. And when we're working with people, we need to help them to think about these things. And actually, when you're saying to people, have you got the ability to learn? Actually, there's not many people who would say no. Because we've all got it and we know we've got it, but we don't always access it. So we would allow ourselves to be stopped. So we say, I can't do it. Okay? My challenge is always, you can't do it yet. Because that's the mindset difference. And that step change can really change things for people. We need to also know ourselves. Okay? So we need to know what our abilities are. We need to know what our skills are, our talents, what are our attributes. What am I going to be likely to be good at? What am I going to enjoy? Why am I doing this sport? And crucially, and this is where I do quite a lot of my work, is around self-limiting beliefs. So if tonight, or earlier this afternoon, I thought to myself, I can't go and give a presentation in front of all these coaches, these people know what they're doing. I can't do that. That'll be really scary. And they'll think I'm stupid, and I won't have anything to say. And Monty's going to give me an introduction that says, this is Kath, she probably won't say anything really interesting at all. How would I have arrived here today? Yeah. Probably wouldn't have. I'd probably still be in my car out there going, oh no, I'm not going in. Okay? It's obvious, but it's the sort of thing we need to talk to people about. How do I arrive? What am I limiting? Now, I have a way that I work through this. I'm going to just fairly quickly go through this with you. But I know that in your packs that you're getting, you've also got a copy of my book, and this is in the book, so you can have a look at it. But basically what I do with people is this. I talk to them about what their core belief is and how they can change it, okay? And how it operates. So why is belief important? Surely I can just go and do it. Well, actually, the belief drives the behaviour, and that's how it works, okay? And I keep it fairly simple. And I say, if you believe something, it will drive your behaviour. If I believe I can't present tonight, I don't turn up. Okay, simple. If I believe I'm useless at sport, okay, just taking a very general sort of comment, I don't prepare well, because why would I bother? Frankly, there's no point. I'm not going to be any good at it. I imagine being terrible, so I visualise myself, you know. I remember when I was growing up, I went to this really unfortunate Catholic girls' school that had the worst sports outfit in the world, okay? We had something called rompers, all right? It's not even a word, is it? And it shouldn't be a word. It makes you even think, even the word. Okay, and rompers were things that had elastic around here. Now, I wasn't born with thin thighs. I didn't even have thin thighs when I finished rowing the Atlantic. It's never going to happen for me. And I was put in rompers. Of course I hated sport, yeah? So, I imagine being terrible, and people help me by giving me really shit things to wear. I'm demotivated, not surprisingly. So if I have to get out there, I kind of half-heartedly do it and then kind of run off into the changing room or, you know, look at other people and make them go first. I focus on the negative. See how terrible I was? See, I was last. See how awful it was? I look stupid. I make more mistakes because I'm thinking that way, and my mind is then primed for that behaviour. I hear the negative feedback. So when the teacher says to me, well done, Kathy, I go, patronising git. Okay, I don't hear it. Okay, even if I've done well, I go, oh, other people did better. Okay, so even if it sounds like it's positive, what I hear is negative. And this is the real crux, because I can say I was right. So I reinforce the belief. See, I told you I was crap at sport. So how do we get people to change it? Well, the first thing we do is we get them to think about, what would it be like if my belief was different? So what if I just thought I have the potential to enjoy sport? Well, how would that change this cycle? I might sign up for a nice running group, run by that man in the middle of the room there. Okay? I invest some time, I invest some resources. I also imagine what I might be able to do. Now, whether that's winning on my terms, completing something I would like to complete, okay, whether it's rowing across an ocean or whether it's running, you know, 5K or 2K or for 10 minutes, it doesn't really matter. but I imagine succeeding for me. That makes me motivated. That means when I go to do my running or rowing or jumping or whatever it is that I'm doing, I do it with a bit of enthusiasm. Cool, yeah. I'm going to have a go at that. It's going to be fun. And I focus on the good bits because I go, hey, guess what? I ran for 10 minutes tonight. I've never done that before. It was fantastic. I improve. I gain confidence. I hear the positive feedback because not only am I giving it to myself, I listen to the stuff that other people are giving me because my brain is now primed to hear it. And I was right. So I reinforce it. And so it goes around. So for me, acumen is really the crux of it, is the big part of this whole message for how we get to succeeding. Key questions that we need to ask ourselves: what is it I want to achieve? What are my goals? What targets do I need to set and attain in order to reach my goals? Now, I know a lot of you will do this kind of stuff. It is important to be talking to people about their goals, right? Because they need to be clear. They need to be able to visualize it. What's it going to be like? I recently trained to run the New York Marathon. As a lot of you will know, that got cancelled. Wasn't my fault, honestly. But, you know, what I had in my head was I was imagining running down First Avenue with the crowds cheering. Yay for Kat. Okay? They probably wouldn't have done that. I know that's true. But it helped me. So it's okay. It only has to happen in here. All right? So, I need to have those goals and set them. We create synergies with people on the way, and these will be happening with you as coaches all the time. I'm just going to flick through this. Building trust, being creative with people. This thing about what questions do we ask? What questions do we encourage other people to ask when we're coaching? Or are we doing telling? Because telling doesn't really work. You could tell me I could do something. If you told me I could row the Atlantic, do you know what? I would have told you, well, you know, one of those words. And until I decided for myself, I didn't know I could do it. Really, until we got to Antigua, I didn't really know we could do it. Listening carefully, not assuming, and sharing the challenges with other people. One of the best things that we did, and I alluded to it before, was to get lots of community support because it helped us on the way. The more support I can get, the better it is. The support could be anything from, how did your run go? How was your row today? Did you hit your target in the shoot? Right through to people like yourselves giving up their time and investing in these young people that you're working with. The next thing, two other parts to my ABC. The next one is bravery, because actually at the end of the day, you know, you have to have, the B also stands for bollocks really. You have to have it, don't you? You have to get out there, you have to do it, you have to get your feet wet, or in our case, your entire body. You know, and it's about going out and just having a go and encouraging people to do stuff when they don't actually know they can do it yet. Encourage them to prototype. Okay, you don't know whether or not you can do this yet. Why don't you have a go? And then we'll figure out the bits that didn't work. Let's have a go. Let's have a go and get people into that. So this is one of my favourite sayings: by fearing failure, we fear the learning that will give us victory. And that's one of the issues. Unless we have a go, we're not ever going to know. So we have to calculate the risks with the people that we're coaching and for ourselves. Actually, what could go wrong? Is it as bad as we think it is? Because most of the time it's not. And breaking it down for people so that we're working with short-term, medium-term, long-term. What is it that we're going on the way, those successes? We need to encourage people to understand that they have to make their luck. Colin Fellows, I don't know if you're here anywhere, seeing this light. Colin will be around over the weekend, I know. Colin always says, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And it's absolutely right. Now, this is one of my real bugbears. Okay, I'm going to put both these up at the same time. I often say to my coaching clients when they're saying to me, oh, I don't know if I could ever do that, and, you know, I don't know if I'm good enough, or, you know, those kinds of negative thoughts that we all have. I often say to them, if somebody was saying that to your child, what would you say to them? Well, I would let them talk to them like that. But we let ourselves talk to ourselves in a way that we probably wouldn't let somebody talk to our best friend like that. So we have to get that messaging across to people. It's okay to say, I'm good enough, I've got potential, I'm going to get there. I always like to have a few mantras for the tough times, so some things that actually I can kind of come back on. These are just a few. I used this one a lot when I was rowing across the Atlantic, when I was dragging myself out of my bed after, well, bed, wet sleeping bag thing, peel off, you know, pretty disgusting really. We didn't know actually, until we got into Antigua, we didn't know we smelt. That would sound really weird, you know, you're on a boat, yeah, you know. And we went back to the boat the second day, and we were walking up towards the harbour, and when we said to, she said, what's that smell? My mother's standing next to me, and she says, it's you. That's what you smell like when you came in yesterday. And we're like, oh God, that's revolting. They're all there going, yeah, we know. Ships are safe in the harbour, but it's not what ships are built for. Another one that I like. And this one is one that I play often. Are you going to get in and do it, or are you going to sit on the sidelines? That's a choice. It's not an I can or I can't. It's just a choice. I will or I won't. That's what that is. And the final piece of the jigsaw is continuance. So this is the C, you know, at the end of the day, anything worth achieving needs a bit of blood, sweat and tears. If it's worth doing, it's usually hard, unfortunately, but then that's what makes it so joyful when we get to the end of it. It's about focus, and I have a real passion that it's also about being gracious with people. I had a really weird experience when I went to run the New York Marathon because it was cancelled. And it was just a really unusual thing. There were 47,000 runners due to run the marathon. A lot of them were already in the city by the time the mayor called it off. And I found out, luckily I wasn't at this meeting because I think I probably would have been locked up. But I found out that some of the people who had come over from the UK to run the marathon, who were in the same group as me, had stood up at a meeting and said, I want to know where my goodie bag has gone and where my water has gone, because nobody asked me whether it should go down to the disaster relief area in Staten Island. Now, I understand what it's like to train for something and be really, you know, passionate about it. But actually, it's sport and people were dying. It's not okay to take that so far past. And frankly, what they were doing with their bloody power bars and their water should have absolutely have gone where it went. So we also need to keep this sportsmanship alive about what are we really about here. And I think that's really important for us. Having and sharing a culture of diligence, also very, very important. These are things that I often talk to people about. I'll just let you read them really. It is about enjoying the journey. It is about thinking about sport as a journey, and it is about thinking about what sport gives us as coaches and about what it gives the young people that we're working with. And I'd like to leave you with a story. I have to put my glasses on now because I'm getting old. The story is called The Two Wolves. It's a Navajo Indian legend, really. It goes like this. An old Navajo Indian told his grandson that sometimes he feels there's a fight going on inside him, a fight between two wolves. The first wolf is evil. It is the wolf of anger, of envy, of sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority and superiority, a fear of healing the mind or body, a fear of succeeding, a fear of exploring what is said by others to be true, a fear of walking in another's moccasins and seeing glimpses of their reality through their eyes and through their hearts, using empty excuses that my heart knows to be false. The second wolf is good. It is the wolf of joy, of peace, of love. of hope, of serenity, of humility and kindness, and of empathy, of caring for those who have helped me, even though their efforts have not always been perfect, the willingness to forgive myself and to forgive others, and realising that my destiny is in my hands. The grandson thought about it for a bit and asked, "But grandfather, which wolf wins?" And the grandfather says, "The one I choose to feed." Thank you.